Welcome back. Now, the National AI Policy Framework emphasizes ethical development by prioritizing the responsible deployment of AI. This in a way that aligns with South Africa's values and priorities while propelling the country's economic growth. AI and automation thought leader and Business Day contributor Johan Steyn joins us now with more insights on that National AI Policy Framework and the approach and aims of it. Johan, absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time today. Hello.
Great to see you again. Thank you.
All right, Johan, let's talk about what we're trying to achieve here. It does sound like a step in the right direction at a national level. What is this National AI Policy Framework? What is the South African government trying to do?
Yeah, look, it's encouraging that after 3 or more years since we've seen the report on the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, where for me it seemed like not much was happening for quite some time. Over the last few months, we've seen a lot happening, which is great. You know, there's a national working group, and I'm part of it, luckily, looking at how can we incorporate AI into a South African and African context. And what this document that we saw released over the last few days is asking for is for input from as wide a range of people as possible, which is great. Because the last thing I always say we want to avoid is that it's just government or just academics involved in this process. It's opened up for everyone for their feedback. And I think what the government is trying to achieve here is to make sure that even though we are leaning on and learning from other regulatory frameworks, especially the EU's AI Act that we spoke about last week, that it's a very South African specific policy, given our history, given our democracy, given our socioeconomic issues. So I find it extremely encouraging, and I'm encouraging everyone I'm speaking with, whether it's fathers, mothers, housewives, teachers, contribute, add your views, even if you don't know much about AI. So I'm very excited about this. Hopefully it will propel us to get to a regulatory framework very, very soon.
I'm also keen to find about that, as we try to get as many players to contribute here as possible. Johan, do we have any blind spots, anything that we as South Africa should be specifically careful of when we put together AI policy that might actually not be relevant in other places of the world?
It's a super great question. In Africa and in South Africa, we have situations and we have ways that this technology is impacting us that's very unique to us. The one is natural language processing or conversational AI, so chatbots. 3,000 languages and dialects on our continent, super underserved by the so-called global north technology and chatbots. But we also have issues around healthcare and education, and specifically economical issues, historically induced economical issues that's not always being catered for by the technology platforms we consume from other countries. So I think it's important, and the blind spots is such a great way of putting it. Let's use what we can from the so-called global north, from other countries, Europe, America, and others. But let's make sure, and I always say this, that child running barefoot in Soweto or somewhere else, that his or her life and future is some way positively impacted by this technology. I think the elephant in the room is job displacements or the possibility through automation and AI. And given our unemployment rate at the moment, and it will probably double or triple that with the use of this technology. It's a fine balance, So how do we stay and increase our competitiveness globally with this tech? But how do we also make sure that we just don't get rid of people as we automate? That is a fine balance, and I think government and other institutions will have to help us to find that balance.
And there's also, I guess, the curious case here of having to go back and make sure that the basics are there. If I think of digital infrastructure here in South Africa, if I think of internet access, for instance, these really, really matter. And so we're trying to be as futuristic as possible here to really cast our eye ahead. But there's still quite a lot we have to do in terms of just basic development here. And I'm wondering if this policy framework is the place to express that, or if that's been expressed previously in other pieces of policy, and we just have to bring that to the fore.
Look, I am encouraged that I've seen in this document that they are very clear about the issues of our history, the results of it that we are still living with, especially in rural areas. We still have issues around connectivity, electricity supply, water supply, A lot of our children don't have proper mobile handsets or iPad kind of devices to access what is out there for them to study. You know, I often say that in South Africa, we still are grappling with second industrial revolution issues, not even fourth. A proper, well-functioning rail network system is a second industrial challenge. We are still grappling with that. The supply and distribution of electricity, even though the last few weeks and months have not been too bad, that is also a second industrial issue. So absolutely, what we have to really leapfrog now, we have to address these issues, which a lot of countries have already grappled with and solved for 150, 200 years ago, while jumping ahead of other countries in Africa, neighboring countries, but also European and North American countries. So I think, and that's what I like about this document, it is honest about the issues we are dealing with and the collaborative effort we need, the collective brain power in our country, educators, parents, professionals, government people, to solve for this issue. So I'm really positive about it. The trick now is to move as fast as we can, because as we know, this technology is just getting out of hand with how quickly it is advancing.
I also know here in South Africa, Johan, we have naysayers. We've got people who believe that we have no business even thinking about AI. We should be thinking about these second industrial, revolution issues that you've mentioned here. And I'm keen also just to understand that kind of thinking. I think it is a school of thought worth entertaining only in an effort to bring people on board here, because we need to embrace AI to remain globally competitive. I think, that goes without saying. But there are people who believe we shouldn't even be thinking about this at this time. And I'm just keen to get your thoughts on that one.
Look, it's a difficult one because we absolutely have to solve the problems we are dealing with now. The problems we've been grappling with for quite a long time. And it doesn't help we just AI and automate everything while children are hungry, people can't get jobs, we have huge amounts of gender-based violence and the like, and our basic services are not being delivered. But we can't box that while the world is moving ahead. So we need to find a way of solving those current issues while looking ahead. So the naysayers have a point. I just think unlike previous industrial revolutions, we don't have the time. We think that large language models will be about 1,000 times more powerful than they are now. ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, other automation and intelligence platforms in just a few years. So the clock is ticking. The trick here is solving current issues, real issues, while still looking ahead at the same time. But we can't do one and leave the other at all. It is tricky business. Government needs to drive it, but all of us, again, as parents, as citizens, need to be involved in our small little ways if we can, as much as we can.
Well, Johan, I look forward to taking stock of all of it as it emerges with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on Business Lunch. That was Johan Steyn, AI and automation thought leader and Business Day contributor.